Hi, welcome back to the Roundtable. I'm your host, Steven, and welcome back to the latest edition of Under the Radar Reviews, where we bring back albums that, slip through the cracks, have been forgotten, or don't get the recognition that they're due for whatever reason. And I'm kind of here bringing them back, kind of saying, hey, take a second look at this, and it deserves to be put up there or higher up on your charts. And this one I'm going to go with 2007's Bruce Springsteen album, Magic. This is a special album. This is it's a different time in Springsteen's career. He came back in 2002 with The Rising, which came right after 9/11, and he showed the world that he had something to say. He's not strictly a nostalgic act anymore. He's an artist who had a lot to say, and that album kind of saved him. Well, not saved him, but brought him back. He was gone for a while. We didn't, where was he? And we got the album, I think, that we needed from Springsteen. And then he drifted off, and he went off doing Devils and Dust, which was an acoustic album. And then he did We Shall Overcome, the Seeger sessions. And it wasn't exactly Springsteen. Springsteen was stretching out his palette, and that's great. And then we kind of heard the rumblings of this rock album with the E Street Band. After 5 years, the E Street Band is back in the saddle, and they're going to come out with this rock album, flat out rock and roll record. And I think that's okay, but if anybody has been a Bruce Springsteen fan knows he doesn't do really flat out rock records. There's always something behind it. There's a lot more going on than we sometimes see or hear at first listen. And Magic, I think, kind of lost something when they said it's a flat-out rock record. People just went, okay. And you heard it. It was well-produced. Brendan O'Brien is back in the chair. And it sounds pretty good. It sounds slick. It sounds crystal clear. And it's probably his most cohesive record since Born in the USA, I'm going to say. And a lot of great tracks on it, but there is a somberness to the material. Even though it's poppy and it sounds uplifting, there is a lot of questioning of where we're going, where we've gone. Innocence is lost. There's a lot of innocence is lost, and where are we going? What has happened? We're going wrong here. Songs I liked off here. We'll go off with the first single, Radio Nowhere, which a lot of people thought was like Bruce Springsteen doing Baby Boomers against how the new music is done with the streaming, and they don't have lyrics, and it's hip hop and whatever, and they don't have the same kind of they don't have that magic, as the album says, like the old stuff does. And maybe somewhere along the line that is true, because he's also saying that there's nothing on rock radio anymore. Radio Nowhere, there's nothing on radio that's resonating anymore. And that's kind of true. But also, as you hear about this part, I want to hear some rhythm. I want to hear voices. I think it's about longing to connect through music, more than just like stating baby boomers against. I think whatever you're a baby boomer or not, if you hear a good song, whether it's Springsteen or some newer guy or newer girl or new woman, you'll like it. A music lover is a music lover, and that's it. I think people took that a little as it's a real push for baby boomers against the new music. I don't think so. I think it was more about we don't hear radio, and we lost that innocence that the first time you hear a song on the radio and it touched you, and you reach out to your friends and listen to this song, and you're together, and there's that connection through music. I think that was the major message. The other song I liked was Living in the Future, a great little pop rocker. You think it's a happy song. It's living in the future and this hasn't happened yet. If you listen, it starts off with, I woke up on election day, the skies were dark and gray. And it's all about being naive to the changes that are happening, and that innocence of the U.S. is gone. It's a very sad song in a way, like how you're being blasé about everything that's happening. You think if you just do your vote, it's going to change, and not necessarily so. It's not for the better just because you went to the polling stations and did your duty. There's a lot more to it, and I think that's what he kind of went on it. Girls in Their Summer Clothes, kind of an homage to the wall of sound of the 60s. Very Beach Boyish kind of vibe to that, and I like that. Very different from a Bruce Springsteen song. Another one I liked is Your Own Worst Enemy, how you keep believing that it's all going to be all right kind of thing, but you're living with your bad decisions. Like it says, you can't sleep at night. You can't dream your dreams. Your own worst enemy has come to town. you start thinking of what you've done or what's happening in the world, and you process this, and you can't sleep at night. Very interesting. I like that song. Last to Die is an interesting song. Basically, it's based off John Kerry, who was a representative of Vietnam's against the Vietnam vets who were against the war. In John Kerry's 1971 speech to the U.S. Senate about who's the last man to die for someone else's cause, for someone else's mistake, the U.S.'s mistake going into Vietnam, right? What else did I like on that album? You'll Be Coming Down. Just a great rocker with the E Street Band. I love that one. I'll Work for Your Love is a nice song too. It's one. I think it's an underrated album. Like I said, it's not that straight up rock record that they were claiming it to be. There's a touch of, I'm going to say, the River. There's a mix of the River which has its heartfelt kind of populism, if I'm going to say it right. Darkness on the Edge of Town, it has this small town scope, and then Tunnel of Love, which you have your kind of a mature look at love and sex in the modern era. But a touch, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of Human Touch on there, and maybe Lucky Town, and maybe even Born in the USA for how slick it kind of sounds. All in all, a great album. Like I said, it came at a different time. I think Springsteen going into Devils and Dust and the Seeger sessions, and then kind of lost momentum with the E Street Band there. It took 5 years, I think, but it's a great album. But I think it just didn't catch the momentum. But I think because of 2002's Rising hit it at a right time, this one took too long, I think, for it to really come out. It's a great follow-up. I think it may be his strongest record since Born in the USA, in terms of the material, in terms of the cohesiveness, in terms of what he's got to say. There's, like I said, the underlying themes of disillusionment and somberness are taken away by how Brendan O'Brien, produces this album. It kind of sounds like a happy pop record. So when they said this pop rock record, yeah, but if you listen underneath, there's a lot going on that we don't hear. And all these themes that he has been doing since the very beginning are there. It's covered up in this catchy pop record, which is really great that he can do that. You can sing and then suddenly go, oh, wait a minute, what is he saying? So it gets, and then, when he kind of experimented with High Hopes and, Living on a Dream, he's kind of changing his style again. So I think people kind of say, oh, his later day albums are just not as good. And I think that's where magic falls through the crack. People just go, they remember the 2002, The Rising, it came after 9/11, and again, it's the album that we needed, and I don't want to shortchange it. And then suddenly he went another route that we weren't expecting to go. I think we wanted more Springsteen or more of his input of the everyday life of everybody, the working day man, right? And I think we didn't get it right away. The album Magic kind of falls off the radar because it just came out 5 years later, and he did other things, and then we saw his other albums kind of drift into different kind of genres, and I think it just gets forgotten. And it's a shame. It's a great album. I think it deserves, no, I don't think, it really does deserve a second chance. It deserves to be spoken in the same regard as you talk about The River or Darkness on the Edge of Town. It's up there. It's up there. It may not be better, but it's up there. And it's a great latter day release from this classic rock icon. And I think people have been shortchanging his later day albums. Go back to Magic. Really take a listen to it. I believe it deserves to be put up there with the best of his other albums. You want to put Born to Run, Born in the USA, The River, Darkness on the Edge of Town. Magic, I think, deserves to be up in that echelon of the great Bruce Springsteen albums. I don't think it's gotten its fair shake. It did well. It deserves better. It's been forgotten because he has jumped off the boat and doing different things, and people kind of pay attention to him going off these different routes more than saying, hey, remember that album? It's fallen by the wayside, and it's unfortunate. I think you should go back, give it a listen, and again, please let me know what you think. You got any favorite tracks on there? I'd love to hear from you. We would appreciate if you would hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world to us. This is Steven, once again from the Roundtable, with our Under the Radar review with 2007's underrated little gem from the one and only the boss, Bruce Springsteen, this one being called Magic. Please give it a listen. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Take care and see you soon.